Get on that bus, go straight home, lock your door and don't open it for anyone tonight. I don't care who knocks. She said it the way you tell someone the stove is still on, flat, certain, like she already knew I'd argue. I almost did. My name is Piper Callahan. I'm 31 years old, a paralegal at a mid-sized firm in Charlotte, and I have spent the better part of a decade being the most practical person in any room I walk into. I read contracts for a living. I don't believe in gut feelings, I believe in evidence. I don't believe in strangers handing out warnings at bus stops, either. Especially not old women who smell like cedar and something sweeter underneath, who grab your wrist with both hands and look at you like you've already survived something you don't know about yet. I had dropped my umbrella. That was the whole thing. I was rushing to catch the 6:15 bus downtown to my boyfriend's apartment. The umbrella slipped out of my bag, and when I'd bent to pick it up, she was just there, crouched beside it, holding it out to me with both hands, like she'd been waiting. I took it. I said thank you. I started to walk away. That's when she grabbed my wrist. I'm not dramatic, I don't scare easily, but the way she looked at me, not through me, not past me, directly at me, like she was reading something printed on the back of my skull. I stopped walking. Don't get on that bus, she said again. Her accent was something I couldn't place. Eastern European, maybe. Older than old. Her eyes were very dark and very clear and completely steady. Go home, she said. Lock the door. I pulled my wrist back gently. I told her I had plans. I told her I was fine. She let me go without another word, just watched me walk toward the stop. I stood at that bus stop for 4 minutes. The 6:15 came, the doors opened. I didn't get on. I don't know why. I've asked myself that question 100 times since, and I still don't have a clean answer. I told myself it was because my stomach felt off. I told myself I'd take a ride share instead. I told myself anything that wasn't because a stranger told me not to. But I didn't get on the bus. I went home. My apartment is a one-bedroom on the third floor of a building that smells like old carpet and someone else's cooking. I've lived there 2 years. My boyfriend, I'll call him my boyfriend because that's what I thought he was. That's what he'd been for 3 years. He had a key. I gave it to him 8 months ago after he stayed over so often it felt cruel to make him ring the buzzer every time. He called it a milestone. He took me to dinner to celebrate it. I should have noticed, even then, the way he talked about it like a transaction completed rather than a moment between two people. But I didn't. I let myself in, dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes. The apartment was quiet and exactly as I'd left it. I poured a glass of water, sat on the couch, felt faintly ridiculous. I texted him that I wasn't feeling well and would come over tomorrow instead. He responded in under a minute. Feel better. Rest up. I'll come check on you later if you don't improve. I remember thinking that was sweet. I remember thinking I was lucky. I turned on the TV. I wasn't really watching it. I kept thinking about the woman at the bus stop, the way she'd held my wrist, the weight of her certainty. I kept dismissing it and then thinking about it again. At 7:45, I heard the key in my lock. I wasn't alarmed, not at first. He'd said he might come by. I thought he was being thoughtful. I almost called out to him. Then I heard a second voice. A woman's voice, low and familiar sounding in a way I couldn't immediately place, the way a song sounds familiar before you remember the name of it. I moved before I thought about it. I don't know why. Something animal. I slipped off the couch and into the short hallway that leads to my bedroom, and then I was inside the bedroom, and then I don't know what made me do it. I will never fully understand what made me do it. Inside my closet, door pulled almost shut. Standing between my work blazers and a stack of shoeboxes, with my heart going so hard I could feel it in my teeth. He walked in with her like he owned the place. No, like he would own the place. There's a difference. I heard him moving through the living room with no hesitation, no checking, no calling my name to see if I was actually there. He knew I wouldn't be. He'd verified it. He'd gotten my text and come anyway, and brought her with him, and he was comfortable. That comfort told me everything before his words did. I heard the refrigerator open, ice dropping into glasses, the sound of a bottle. She's out for the night, he said. Casual, the same voice he used to tell me about his day. The woman laughed. Low, easy, you sure? Positive. She's at her place being responsible. A beat, she's always responsible. He said it like a punchline. I stood in my closet and listened to my boyfriend hand another woman a drink in my kitchen and describe me like I was a minor inconvenience he learned to work around. I didn't move. I barely breathed. My mind had gone somewhere very quiet and very cold. That place it goes when I'm reading a contract that doesn't add up and I need to understand exactly where the problem is before I say anything out loud. I still can't believe how easy it's been, the woman said. She sounded comfortable too. Settled, like she'd had this conversation before. That's because she trusts me, he said, and there was something in his voice that wasn't quite pride and wasn't quite contempt, and was somehow both. She doesn't question anything I tell her. The account stuff. Done, he paused. I heard the couch accept his weight. She signed off on the joint account 3 weeks ago. The beneficiary update on the life insurance was last month. I told her it was standard pre-marriage housekeeping. I stopped breathing. Not dramatically, not in the way people describe shock in movies. I just stopped for a moment and then started again, very carefully, like I was teaching myself the mechanics of it. Pre-marriage housekeeping. I replayed the last 4 months. Him bringing up finances so casually, folding it into conversations about our future, our plans, the apartment we talked about getting together. Him walking me through paperwork with the patient, gentle energy of someone who loves you and just wants things to be organized. Me signing things because I trusted him. Because that's what trust looks like. You stop reading every line. The timing still makes me nervous, the woman said. Don't be, he said. This is the part where we just wait. She's not going anywhere. She doesn't even know there's somewhere to go. And if she figures it out? He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, and something in the register of it went through me like cold water. She won't, he said. But even if she did, by the time she understood what she was looking at, everything would already be moved. I've done the math. There's no version of this where she ends up with anything. I heard the woman exhale, slow and satisfied. Then I'd say we're in good shape, she said. Yeah, he said, we are. He had been planning this. Not impulsively, not recently. He had been planning this the way you plan a project, with timelines and contingencies and a clear picture of the end result. He had looked at me and seen a resource, a stepping stone, something to be liquidated and left behind. I thought about the joint checking account I'd moved half my savings into 6 weeks ago. I thought about the beneficiary paperwork I'd signed at his kitchen table while he made coffee and told me it was just what responsible couples did. I thought about my life insurance policy, which I'd updated to name him, because we were building a future, and that's what you do when you're building a future with someone. I did not panic. I am very good at not panicking. It's most of my job. I stood in my closet and let the shock move through me like a weather system, cold front to cold front, until my hands steadied and my breathing leveled and my brain came back online. And when it did, it didn't come back online in the heartbroken way. It came back in the other way, the paralegal way. Every document has a paper trail. Every transaction has a timestamp. Every account has an audit log. And I had done nothing irreversible yet. I unlocked my phone. The screen light felt enormous in the dark of that closet. I turned the brightness all the way down, cupped my hand around it, and opened my notes app. I started writing. Dates. Account numbers from memory. The specific language he'd used when he walked me through the beneficiary form. The name of the insurance agent he'd recommended. The name of the financial advisor he'd steered me toward. His college friend, I now understood, in a different way than I had understood it before. I could hear them in the living room. The conversation had shifted to something easier, something social, the kind of talk you have when the real business is concluded and you're just waiting for the evening to be whatever the evening is. I waited. When I heard them move toward the kitchen again, more ice, more drinks, I opened my banking app. Quietly. Slowly. The joint account was there and my contribution sitting in it, accessible to both of us, scheduled for a transfer he'd set up that I'd approved without reading the destination carefully enough. The transfer was set for Friday morning. I canceled it. The app asked me to confirm. I confirmed. Then I navigated to the beneficiary portal for my insurance policy and requested an emergency review flag, citing a concern about coerced changes to financial documents. As a paralegal, I knew exactly which words triggered mandatory review holds: coercion, Undue influence, disputed authorization. I used all three. I screenshot everything, timestamps, confirmation numbers. The original beneficiary update request with his email address as the initiating party. I sent copies to my personal cloud storage, an old account I'd had since college that I'd never mentioned to him, because there was simply never a reason to. I sent copies to my work email. I sent a copy to the encrypted folder I use for sensitive client documents, because old habits. Then I opened my contacts and found my attorney, not the one he'd recommended. Mine. A woman I'd worked with on a case 2 years ago who'd given me her card and said if you ever need anything, call me first. I sent her a text, 9 words, I need to talk to you tomorrow morning. Urgent. She responded in 6 minutes. 7 a.m. Call me. I stood in that closet for another 40 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on my phone. I listened to them talk and laugh and exist in my space with the particular ease of people who have no idea they've already lost. When I heard him say he was going to head out soon, early meeting, he said, same voice, same casual ease. I moved to the far corner of the closet, pressed myself back, and stayed completely still while they said goodbye at the door. When the lock clicked behind her, I heard him move through the apartment one more time, checking something. I don't know what. The refrigerator again. The kitchen counter. Then the front door opened and closed, and he was gone, and I was alone in my own apartment for the first time in 2 hours. I sat down on the closet floor, just for a minute, just to let my legs stop shaking. Then I got up, went to my desk, and started working. I pulled every piece of paperwork he had ever handed me. I am a person who files things. He had teased me about it. The labeled folders in my desk drawer, the color-coded tabs. He had teased me about it the way you tease someone about a harmless quirk, the fond and slightly condescending patience of a person who thinks your systems are unnecessary. Those systems were the entire ball game. I had copies of everything I'd signed. Originals in some cases. I had the emails he'd sent me with attachments. I had the dates. I had the progression of it, laid out in a sequence that told a very clear story if you knew what you were looking at. I knew what I was looking at. I built a timeline document. I cross-referenced account activities. I noted every instance where the paperwork had been presented casually, in a low-stakes environment, framed as routine. Coercive by context is a legal concept. It doesn't require a threat. It requires a power imbalance and a pattern. I had documented both. At 11:40 p.m., I made myself eat something. Toast. I stood at the kitchen counter and ate toast and stared at the wall and thought about 3 years. I thought about the trip we took to Colorado for my birthday. I thought about the night his dad went into the hospital, and I drove 4 hours to be there. I thought about every moment I had filed under love, and wondered which of them had been real and which had been maintenance, the minimum effort required to keep the asset cooperative. I didn't cry. I thought I would. I kept waiting to, but there was something clarifying about the specificity of it, about knowing exactly what it was, about having heard it in his own words, in his own voice, in my own apartment. There was nothing to interpret. There was no version of it that was a misunderstanding. I didn't have to wonder. That almost made it easier. At 2:15 in the morning, I sent him a text. Hey, feeling a little better? Did you stop by earlier? I thought I heard something. The 3 dots appeared so fast it almost made me laugh. No, stayed home all night. Glad you're feeling better. Sleep. There it was. Lie delivered in under 10 seconds, no hesitation. I screenshotted it, labeled it, added it to the folder. At 7:02 a.m., I called my attorney. I told her everything in the order it happened, without editorializing, without crying, in the same voice I use when I'm briefing a partner on a complicated file. She was quiet for most of it. When I finished, she said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do." I want to tell you she was surprised. She wasn't. She said she wished she could say this was unusual. By 9:30 a.m., she had submitted a formal dispute on the beneficiary changes, citing documented evidence of coercive financial influence. By 10:15, the joint account had been flagged for review by the bank's fraud department. When your attorney calls and uses specific language, things move quickly. The Friday transfer was already canceled, but we wanted the account itself frozen pending investigation. At 10:47, I sent him a text. Just one line. We need to talk. Can you come over tonight? He said yes. Of course he said yes. Why wouldn't he? As far as he knew, everything was still on track. He knocked at 6:30. Knocked, not let himself in. I had changed the locks that afternoon. It took 20 minutes and cost me $63 at the hardware store, and it was the best $63 I have ever spent. I opened the door. He looked the same. That was the strange part. I don't know what I expected. Some outward sign of what he was, some tell. He looked like the person I had loved. He looked comfortable. That comfort evaporated in about 90 seconds. I let him sit down. I sat across from him. I didn't offer him anything to drink. What's going on? He said. Easy, open. He was good at this. I said, tell me about the joint account. A pause. Small. Controlled. What about it? The transfer that was scheduled for Friday. It's an investment vehicle, he said. I told you about it. You did, I said. You also told me it was mutual. It wasn't. The destination account is in your name only. Something moved across his face, not quite fear, the precursor to it. That's... I also spoke to the insurance company this morning, I said. They flagged the beneficiary update pending investigation. My attorney submitted the paperwork yesterday. The precursor arrived at the destination. You have an attorney? I am a paralegal, I said very evenly. Did you think I didn't know any attorneys? He shifted. He looked at his hands. He looked back at me. Then, because liars run out of road and start circling, he tried to construct something. You're misunderstanding what you heard. That one landed oddly. He hadn't known I'd heard anything. What I heard? I asked. He stopped. I watched him understand it in real time, the realization arriving in stages, that I'd been home, that I'd been there the whole time, that everything he'd said in my living room had been said while I was 20 feet away. I watched it cross his face like a system failing, component by component. Piper... I'm not angry, I said, and I meant it, which surprised me a little. I wasn't angry. I was finished. There's a difference. I want you to leave now. My attorney will be in contact. Don't reach out to me directly again. He sat there for a moment, calculating, running the math on what I had, what he had, what options remained. There weren't many. He left. He didn't slam the door. He just left, quietly, like he was already thinking about the next thing. I locked the deadbolt behind him, the new deadbolt, the one he had no key for, and stood in my hallway for a moment in the quiet of my own apartment. The investigation took 6 weeks. It turned out the financial advisor he'd been steering me toward had a prior complaint filed by a different woman, an ex-girlfriend, as it turned out, citing similar patterns. Similar paperwork, similar framing, similar timeline. That complaint hadn't gone anywhere on its own. Mine combined with hers was a different conversation. I got my money back. All of it. The beneficiary was reverted to my mother, where it should have been. He faced a civil complaint and, eventually, an uncomfortable meeting with the State Bar Association because it turned out the financial advisor did have a license, and it turned out what they'd been doing together had a name. I heard from his mother once. She left a voicemail that I almost deleted without listening to. She said she was sorry. She said she'd had a feeling something was wrong for months. She said she'd tried to talk to him. I didn't call her back. But I listened to the message twice, and there was something in her voice, that same quality, that low certainty, that reminded me oddly of the woman at the bus stop. I've thought about her a lot since then, the woman with the cedar smell and the grip that was stronger than you'd expect. I never saw her again. I looked the first few times I took that route. She was never there. I don't know what she knew or how she knew it. I don't know if she'd seen him before, seen something, understood something about what was waiting for me in that apartment. I don't know if it was something else entirely, the kind of knowing that doesn't fit into any category I have a word for. What I know is that I didn't get on the bus. What I know is that she handed me back my umbrella with both hands, like it was something worth taking care of, and told me to go home. I'm still not a person who believes in that kind of thing. I work in law. I believe in documentation and evidence and the paper trail that follows every human decision like a shadow. But I also believe she stopped me on that corner for a reason. And I believe that sometimes the most important thing you can do is listen to a stranger who has nothing to gain from lying to you, while learning, finally, to stop listening to the person who had everything to gain from keeping you blind. I keep coming back to one moment. Not the closet, not the paperwork, not the phone call with my attorney, not the look on his face when he realized I'd been home the whole time. The moment I keep coming back to is standing at that bus stop, watching the 6015 pull away without me on it, thinking I don't even know what I was thinking. That I'd made a strange decision, that I'd explain it to myself later. I've thought a lot about what it actually takes to walk away from something that looks fine on the surface. Because that's the hardest part, isn't it? Everything looked fine. The relationship looked fine. The paperwork looked routine. He looked like someone who loved me. When the thing that's hurting you has learned to wear a familiar face, your own judgment becomes the first casualty. You start second guessing what you see because you don't want to be the kind of person who sees it. What I know now is that doing the right thing, having genuine integrity in how you treat people, is not just a moral nicety. It is a structural decision. It determines what you build and what you're willing to tear down. He had made his structural decision long before I understood it. Everything he did, every patient explanation, every casual dinner where he slid paperwork across the table, was built on a foundation of contempt, dressed up as care. That kind of thing has weight. It accumulates. And eventually, it tells on itself, one way or another. I also know that staying sharp, staying genuinely curious and careful about the world you're living in, is not paranoia. It is maintenance. I had stopped reading carefully. I had let trust become a reason to stop paying attention, and I think a lot of people do that, especially in relationships where you've invested years. You conflate trust with suspension of judgment. They are not the same thing. Trusting someone and remaining clear-eyed about what is actually in front of you are things that can and should coexist. I lost that for a while. The color-coded folders in my desk drawer kept it for me, even when I wasn't. And the steadiness. The part where I stood in that closet and did not fall apart, where I sat in my car at 2 in the morning rebuilding my financial lifeline by line, that didn't come from nowhere. It came from every hard thing I'd gotten through before that I thought was just behind me. Nothing you survive is entirely behind you. Some of it converts. It becomes the thing you draw on when you're standing in the dark between your winter coats, deciding what kind of person you're going to be in the next 5 minutes. I'm still not someone who believes in the unexplainable. But I believe that woman stopped me for a reason. I believe she handed me back my umbrella like it was worth keeping and pointed me toward the truth I wasn't looking for yet. I went home. I listened. I didn't fall apart. That turned out to be enough.